Good afternoon, Facebook. Thank you for joining us today. I have a great treat for you guys. Great show in regards to commercial real estate with my fabulous speakers here. So we're gonna give you guys some time to get in, tag your friends, share it, and we'll get started very, very soon. So let me go ahead and do my part in sharing as well. Are you ladies there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So make sure. Again, good afternoon, everyone. This is the Building Wealth Through Commercial Real Estate conversation. Where we are trying to empower people in order to increase their finances and their lifestyle. I'm here with amazing speakers who's been in the industry for many years, and they're here to share some nuggets on how to get started in the space you're in, no matter where you are. So get started. We have, the lady to the red, with her fashionable sense of style, Miss Anna McNeil. She is the president of the MCO Services and the president of Women in Construction, the Association of Black Women in Construction. So welcome again to the platform. Thank you for your time. And so underneath me, you guys can see we have Ms. Devon Reeves. She's a hotel consultant and the founder of the Vaughn Group. Thank you for joining us, making it work so then we can be, the best version of ourselves. So thank you for joining us. And of course, last but not least, you have Miss Denise Hadnott. She is the managing director for L Commercial Services, as well as she has a educational program that teaches wealth strategies that is helping people put things together. So thank you for being here and definitely be in the space of, educating our community. So we appreciate all you guys and the things you guys do in our community. So given that the conversation is about wealth building through commercial real estate, Denise, I'll start with you being a realtor in commercial real estate. Can you define commercial real estate? Because I think sometimes, people, it's just a fuzzy line in regards to what entails a, commercial real estate and what to look for when someone is getting into the space.
So commercial real estate would be anything that's over so you have single family, which is residential, but anything over a multifamily. So if you have an apartment complex that is 4 or more units, you have a retail shopping center, you could also have industrial property. There could be commercial land, and then even the self-storage is commercial property, and then also the RV parks. All of that will be considered commercial real estate.
Also, okay, thank you. Yeah. So do you feel like people who are in the space or in your industry, being a minority, how do you feel like more of the percentage of who we are and more of us, how do we shape the landscape, from your perspective?
I think the first thing we have to do is understand and realize that we can actually become commercial real estate owners, and I think we have to do a better job of making sure our community understands what it takes, to get there. The due diligence. Making sure that we take care of our personal economy so that we can be in a place to where we can, if we have to join forces and collaborate with someone on buying commercial property, or if we stand strong on our own. But I think we definitely need to understand and make sure we understand and do the due diligence to get there.
Agreed. Oh. So even, people get into commercial real estate in terms like you have the money, or, you team up with, whoever in your circle that, you guys can, make something happen. So when it comes to finding a good construction company, so Ms. McNeil, I want you to answer that. So what does it take to look into a good construction company and knowing that you are making the right choice?
I think it takes a relationship. It takes a relationship. Oftentimes no matter what we say, people will go out of their way to do business with people that they know, that they like, and that they trust. And so, we talk about bidding projects, we talk about, going online and doing research and all of these things. But in reality, no matter what size the project is in commercial real estate, especially the larger projects and development opportunities, people are looking for people that they know. That does it take? I would say the very first thing it takes is a relationship at all levels in the space to really, be in position to build, whether it is a hotel, whether it's a development. Our business for the most, and we're starting to see more public-private partnerships, partnering with the private sector to do public sector projects.
Okay, awesome. And how did you get into the construction and real estate, in the construction space as a woman of color, which, I don't think is many, in terms of like the fractional percentage. So how did, what started you? What was the inspiration to get you in that route?
Okay, that's which question do you want me to answer first? How?
In terms of how did you get into the space?
The number, like,
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me?
No, you can tie all of that in. Yeah, I was just giving in terms of, I know when it comes to construction companies, many people who look like us aren't, the faces for that. So you can expand on, the percentage and how you got into the space.
Okay, well, let's talk about people that look like us.
Mm-hmm.
People who look like us, depending upon who you're talking to, could be Black people, could be women. We four just happen to be both. And so for me, I've been in the construction industry. My children tell me, Mommy, nobody cares after 40 years, you can stop counting. So I stopped counting after 45 years. And so people ask me often, how did you get into construction? Well, I have an undergraduate degree in accounting, I have a master's in finance, and I had a really good corporate job. Yes, it was a really good corporate job. And my husband and I bought our house, went out of college, and we bought the house across the street. Then we bought the house down the street, all on the same street. And then we started doing repairs ourselves. Came home from work one day from my good corporate job, and my husband said, if I had it to do all over again, now I married up. Let me say that I married up. My husband graduated valedictorian from our university, and we graduated from Florida Memorial. Anyway, he said, if I had it to do all over again, I would not go to college. I was shocked. I think about it. He said, these guys that come in here and they do these repairs for us, and I did the math. He said, and if we did the work ourselves, the money we
seems like
will save is more than you make. Yeah, he said the money that we would make by self-performing the work, he said these guys make more in an hour than you make in a day. And at that point, I decided to go to a trade school. That's how I got into construction, just by doing my own, talking about real estate, ladies.
Okay.
And that's right. That's how so from doing the self-performing work, I went to a trade school while working on my master's degree. And that was in the 70s. So needless to say, growing that from houses to then public sector projects to now we focus on billion-dollar programs. And so those are public sector projects, whether it's an airport projects is what we focus on now.
Great. Great story. So let me ask you, because I know often I hear people often recommend those to go through residential in order to go to commercial real estate. Or do you feel like someone can actually jump right in and just get started in commercial real estate?
Of course, because the real estate side, and you have the experts on here today. I think it's just like any other business. There are some prerequisites, and one is a mindset shift. The money is one thing, but you must have the mindset shift to persist until you succeed. And are you, do you really have the tenacity and the drive? And it's not always perfect. It's not always going to be great. What do you do when you don't have it? So I think that, yes, you can, but I think a very good foundation is to start small and build, because when you start small, and we'll take someone like Don Peoples.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And are you still with
like
us?
Peoples, people
Okay.
see him with, yes.
Okay, because
Yes.
you're freezing up a
So-
little bit here. Okay.
Oh, okay. All right. So I was saying about coming along the way, and I use Don Peoples as an example. I use Andy as an example.
Yeah.
They didn't start, Andy's family started with the restaurant, and he built on top of that with personal property. Don Peoples' mom worked in development. He didn't just all of a sudden become what we now know as Don Peoples. And I can go on and on. As you think about different people that started in this industry, anybody you think about, especially if they look like us in development, there was a path. And the path can be pre-planned, or sometimes we fall into it, we think, but I think that everything is really ordained. And so again, yes, they can jump into it, but I really, come from a place. And one more example, when you think about neighborhood, and I know we're talking about, development, but you look at many of the professionals who are Black inside of neighborhood, the lawyers, the Black female lawyers, the Black male lawyers, the CPA, they worked in Marriott, many of them, for years before they developed their first hotel.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't just jump into the hotel industry. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that everybody that's listening to this program, be mindful that there's some due diligence that you must do, starting with your mindset and starting with the desire.
Absolutely.
Can I say something about what you said? I totally agree. I did commercial property management for about 7 years. And in doing so, I learned construction. That's how I actually learned construction. Okay. And I started managing construction projects from doing property management. So you're absolutely right. It's like starting somewhere. And I ended up doing property management because I've been in real estate for so long. So yeah, that's absolutely correct. I 100% agree.
Agreed. No, absolutely. It's really, like you say, doing the research and having the foundation. I didn't catch it.
Now, I would suggest that she would be a prime candidate. Yeah, I was suggesting that she would be a prime candidate as a Black woman in construction. So when you ask the question, you say, how many Black women in construction are there, basically? So you would be amazed. When I started this, exactly. So we'll talk offline. Okay. but you would be amazed, and so are your.
And it seems like you're freezing. It's the internet.
Listeners, because what happens is thing touches construction. Yes. So I'll leave it at that. There are a lot of Black women in construction. We just have not connected the dots yet.
And this is right here, a prime example of connecting the dots. Awesome. So Devon, mentioned, that we mentioned through hotel space. Often, we attempt many people are intimidated by the process of owning a hotel. Like, wow, owning my own hotel. So take us to your journey. How did you get started in the space and becoming a hotel consultant?
Well, I mean, I definitely want to definitely agree with Miss Ann as far as it starts with the mindset, right? So I'm sure a lot of people think, oh, before we even get into hotels, some people are afraid to even touch commercial real estate, right? And then a lot of people, they don't want to touch construction, right? So they think that it's something that they can't do. So it starts with the mindset, and you can't really, because hotels, all of this is just another form of commercial real estate, right? So I've noticed, once you really understand the fundamentals and take baby steps. I'm seeing a lot of people, they hear, the Don Peoples of the world, or, so many other names. They hear all these people with billion-dollar portfolios. And so their first deal, they want to start off with a $50 million deal. And I'm like, wait a minute, slow your roll, understand the basics, maybe get a quadplex first, maybe, maybe if you do want to get into the hotel space, maybe start off with a smaller hotel, maybe economy hotel, or maybe just start investing first and then understanding how that process works. And then take that journey and partner with someone who's experienced and become a hotel owner. I got my start, working as a front desk agent. Okay. So, Ann talked about the path, right? That was a path that I've taken. I didn't just wake up one day and say, okay, I'm gonna buy a hotel. Like, I had an entire journey. I was fortunate enough to have operations experience. I was fortunate enough to work with the leading third-party asset management company. So in my role, I'm working with hotel owners who own some of the largest hotels in the world, right? That I'm sure many of you, if I name them, you've probably stayed there or know someone who stayed there. So I work on behalf of the owners. So I know what it takes to own a hotel. I know what it takes to raise capital. I know what it takes to pull in the different people and pull in to pull in an acquisition team or a development team. So what the difference is, in those roles, and I'm sure Ann and Denise, they can attest to it, it's not a lot of people who look like us. And then we can even break it down a little smaller. It's not that many Black women, right? So I commend you, Florence, that you put together a phenomenal discussion of phenomenal, extraordinary women. Like, I'm honored to be on the same platform. When I said, what? I said, I'm be on the same page with them. Wait, I'm on the same flyer. Wait a minute, Denise. Oh my God. No, I'm sorry. I had to just make that. I'm sorry.
Okay. But that's how we have to be. It's that.
Okay. So it's rare that you have women, particularly Black women, and even having a conversation about commercial real estate, right? So we have our own battles that we have to fight. Not only do we have to fight as far as being Black in the commercial real estate, but if you notice, a lot of the major players who are Black in the commercial real estate, they're men, right? So so we have to fight two battles, one to be Black and another to be women, right? And so we have to form a group and alliance. So when I'm looking at, assembling teams or educating people, I'm like, look, hey, let me use what I knowledge. Let me use my connections, because I'm at a different place where now people will listen to me because I own a hotel, right? So now, before, when I was a front desk agent or an analyst or whatever, nobody really paid attention to me. But now, since I own the brands, they want to hear what I have to say. If I call, they'll answer or they'll respond within 24 hours, because now I'm in a different position. So now I have to leverage and use my platform, because, people like Denise and Ann, they open the doors for me. So I would be a disservice that they open the doors for me and I don't continue to leave it open for other people who are younger or who are coming up behind us to keep it open, right? Totally. So it's all about having these conversations and having these discussions but getting people to get to that mindset. My grandma always taught me, you need to have a paid off house in the family. That way somebody always got a place to stay. No matter, everybody got that one cousin that just need a place to stay. So she's like, Davon, just make sure, just keep this one house. Just where it's in the country. And nobody wants to live there, but I still got to keep it, because that's what my grandma said. But I'm taking it to the next level. And now let's just have one hotel paid off, right? Let's have one hotel. This is something that bring in consistent cash flow. This can create jobs. So if somebody, a cousin or somebody out of work, go ahead, work at the hotels. We got something for you. But it's just all about that mindset, and just take what has been taught to us, because this is not new. Black people own hotels. It's amazing. They're like, we can own a hotel. Yes. What do y'all think? Black people own hotels for over hundreds of years. They're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this. Yeah, but it's just because of segregation. Integration, that people, once we got a chance to stay at white-owned establishments, we left our people and we left our hotels, and it pretty much decimated that side of the business. So all I am is just re-educating stuff that's just been there. I'm not talking about anything new, but it starts with that mindset. Let's just take it to the next step. Now we understand that, okay, home ownership, that is the key of transferring generational wealth. Let's take it to the next step. Let's talk about life insurance and commercial real estate assets that we can really transfer a significant amount of wealth and equity to future generations.
Agreed. Earlier, of course, you mentioned, of course, it being male dominant. So, and I have like women in the commercial space that, share their battles when it comes to dealing with men, sitting meetings and not to be taken serious, or call, or saying, oh yeah, babe, and
honey.
So how do you navigate in that space, when you're dealing with, the majority being a minority?
Oh, me?
Yes.
Oh, how do I deal with it?
Or how do you navigate, or you see others in your space?
I'm so used to it. But one thing I will say is, you have to, I respect myself, right? Mm-hmm. And so, there is, be realistic, and I'm sure everyone on this panel had to say a few things to let folks know that you demand a level of respect as being a woman. And that's all you can do. If somebody wants to meet for dinner to discuss business, no, we can meet for lunch or coffee. We don't need to meet for dinner, right? Whatever we can talk about before 5 o'clock. And so just having those boundaries,
I like that.
or having a conversation if they want to shift and talk about how you look good in that dress and all that extra stuff. Okay, thank you for the compliment. Let's go back and talk about business. Let's talk about these numbers. And a lot of times, again, going back as Black women, we have to constantly prove ourselves and do a million. We have to work the hardest ever. We have to be prepared. We have to know the numbers. We have to be we literally have to know everything. And if we make one mistake, it's like the end of the world, right? And so it's a lot of pressure, on us. But in order to we have to just, as far as like, we just have to really understand what we're doing, be prepared. And so what I tell people, or women who are going through things and it's kind of uncomfortable and they don't know how to deal with it, it's okay to say no. Like, if you lose your job, you want to be able to sleep at night, right? You want to be able to feel like that you're treated as a human, you're treated as a person, that you have some integrity about yourself, and that you shouldn't have to compromise yourself, because regardless of your color, your gender, what you look like, what you wear, you should never have to compromise yourself for any position, because there's so many jobs out there. There's so many other positions. There's so many paths that you can take. And if you're in a position where you feel uncomfortable, it's okay to walk away. It's okay to speak up. I've seen it where people spoke up and nothing happened. And I hate that. And I'm sure other women can say that they saw nothing happen. And that kind of discourages people. But you keep fighting for your voice. You are your true champion, because if you don't speak up for yourself, nobody else is going to speak up for you.
Totally agree. Kudos for that message. Absolutely. So Denise, somebody's, of course, they want to get started in commercial real estate. So they're looking for a realtor like yourself. So what are some key factors, people need to be in place in order to get started?
Well, if they're looking, so it depends. So for instance, if they're coming in and they're a new business owner and they're looking, let's say, to lease, I would definitely say, sit down and have a consultation, and so you can have a better idea of what you're getting into. Because a lot of people don't realize when they sign a lease on a commercial lease, you could be sued. You can lose everything if you sign that lease and not paying attention to what you're signing, or not realizing, what is expected of you, because it's not just signing a lease and then the landlord takes care of everything. I mean, you are responsible or could be responsible for a lot of the interior things that are going on with that property. You know, if your AC goes out, the landlord may not take care of that. That could be a $3,000 to $5,000 hit. Some business owners aren't prepared for that. But it's important that they know going in, these are some things that either we can negotiate, and if we absolutely cannot negotiate, then you need to be prepared for it. If they're looking to purchase, again, I just like for people to sit down and really understand what they're getting into, how much you're going to need. And that's why I think it's important to always work on building your personal economy, you know, making sure your credit is where it needs to be, your debt, just having, and then having that network, you know, like you mentioned about with going out to try to build the capital that you need, you know, if you're trying to purchase. But if you have that network, then you can do that. So I just think it's important for people to really just know what they're getting into. One of the things that I try to tell business owners now, especially if they're looking to lease, don't look at leasing and just, I'm a lease and I'm gonna stay there. Look to lease to purchase. You know, make that lease the first location, but work on getting yourself in a position where you can purchase a building and you become, you know, the landlord. Your business can be in that building, but let other people lease out those other spaces and let that building pay for itself. Build your cash flow. That's a hell of an asset when you can buy commercial real estate. I love commercial real estate, and I love the numbers of it. I call commercial real estate and residential at this point, that's fill estate. So it's fill estate versus real estate.
Okay. And so one of the, you know, of course, common question is, how much do I need to get started? You know, you mentioned in terms like building your capital. So what is the ideal suggestion?
So if somebody's looking to purchase like, let's say a shopping center, they need to have at least 20 to 30% down. But, you know, but again, I don't do loans, but there are some lenders that can work with them and they can have less. But, you know, if they're going to look at your assets, so it's a number of different things that they're going to look at that you have to come to the table with. And, you know, that's the thing with commercial real estate. It's different from residential. You know, with residential, it's, you know, if it's FHA, it's 3.5% down, or if it's conventional, it could be 5% or 10%. Well, with commercial, it just depends on the lender that you're working with, you know, as far as what they're going to require. But you will have to have some type of reserves, and you will have to have some assets.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And so, Ms. Neil, you know, so now we're in the construction part, you know, because I know sometimes depending on the dwelling, you know, sometimes it's, you know, I guess more cost effective to build something new versus trying to rehab something that, you know, it depends on how the numbers play out. So what would be first of all, the entry point that, you know, if someone want to get into a construction, you know, space, and they'll have operate their own construction company like yourself, you know, so what are some ideal traits or factors they need to look into when choosing the right construction company for their project?
I'm gonna go off script for a moment.
Okay.
I'm going to go off script for a moment and share this. And I think you know where I'm going with this, right?
Think and grow rich.
Yes. So I say that because when you ask about what's the right, are you talking about like contractor? How do you choose? Because for us, we focus more in the public sector space. Because again, going back to what we've talked about earlier with our awesome guests, commercial real estate versus residential. Many of us, we think of residential real estate, and depending upon what area you're talking about, you can range anywhere from $250,000 to $1 million or less than $50,000, depending upon the geographical area. I mentioned this book because, again, a lot of what I've built, 5 businesses from these principles, and focusing on thinking and growing richer in every area of my life and business. So I go back to the relationships and the principles in this book. If anybody listening is thinking about hiring a contractor, I don't care what color they are. Do you know them? Do you like them? Do you trust them? No? Who do you know that knows them, likes them, trusts them? Because these relationships start out wonderful. And I know I can see the faces of some developers and realtors right now saying, I didn't know he was like that. I didn't know she was like that. And we're not going to call anybody's names because it does not matter. You must know, like, and trust whoever you're going to do any kind of business with, but especially in construction. And I've been in the business and the industry for over 40 years. So professionally and personally, I've elected to leave residential real estate construction to somebody else. Because the one thing that we must all know, and I go back to the principles of the book, niche to be rich. Niche to be rich.
I like
Don't try to be all things to all people. Just because you know somebody that does repairs does not mean they're the best people to build your house. Just because you know somebody who do public sector construction does not mean that they're the best person to build your development. I've seen a lot of people go out of business as developers, especially when you start talking about it. I'm not talking about just multifamily units. That's one thing. But when you get into many of these CRA developments that we know, that's $500 million, $1 billion plus, as we look at all of our inner cities. My office is in Liberty City, right on 27th Avenue and 66, right at the Business Assistance Center. And when you look in that neighborhood, when you drive it, I literally got lost. I've been in that building over 25 years. And I took a turn trying to make a shortcut. And all of a sudden I'm saying, where did these high rises come from? Right in the center of the city. When did this happen? What's my point? My point is this. If you are planning on doing any kind of construction, I don't care if it's renovations or new construction or multifamily, please make absolutely sure, number one, you get somebody you know, like, and trust, even if they give you a referral because you don't know somebody, and then do your due diligence. Yes, do your due diligence. Is this what they really do for a living, or do they do something else, but they're going to practice on your project? So I cannot say that strong enough. Because you don't know, and it's too expensive to find out.
Great. Definitely great points to make. And so when it comes to, like I said, the going after the CRA money, the bidding, the contracting, and I know sometimes even the languages could be intimidated to those who want to pursue it. Because even here in Dade County, I remember years ago when they put out a bid for the school, so many bidders, they didn't have a lot of bidders to begin with, and of course, when they did marketing and find out what the community were saying is that, they of course find the process to be intimidating. They'll get the form, and half of the things they don't even know what they're reading, and so, and of course, they have to open their books, bond, all these other process that really we haven't got the knowledge to go through these process. So what is your recommendation in regards to someone who want to get into, bidding on contracts, because I know like you build several, public structures here in South Florida, so what are, I guess, in terms like you can label the pitfalls that people normally do and the things that people should look out for when it comes to, going after big contracts?
Well, let's start with some small contracts.
Okay.
Let's start with some small contracts first. And no, I'm very serious because I think of how I started, and many of us on the program today, we have had the same journey. We started with one thing and we did it very, very well. And then we picked up something else and we did it very well, and we learned how to do that. And then we picked up something else and then we learned how to do it. And it was not easy. And it did not come overnight.
Yeah.
And then before we knew it, somebody said, well, listen, you're good at this. Can you also do that? sometimes you have to say no. You know, no, I don't do that. Oftentimes, if the money looks good, we say yes, and then we regret, right?
Right.
So I would suggest to anybody, there's so many free resources. I mean, Marie Gill with her program, Beatrice Lewis Saint with her program. And this is, you know, these are programs that these counties, cities, and states have funded phenomenal organizations like the National Minority Supply Diversity Council and the Florida Regional Purchasing Business Council with the FRNBC with Beatrice and Marie Gill's organization, and Miami-Dade County, the cities, they all have programs. They have programs and offices that will hold your hand. They will help you get certified. They will help you make sure that your paperwork is properly processed. And so I think that there are a lot more resources out here for free. Let me say again, because free is good. There are a lot more resources out here for free that we may not be aware of before we pay somebody a fee, and then we find out that they don't know what they're talking about. So that's the first thing that I would suggest that you do. And I'll just say my own journey started with this book, Think and Grow Rich, in 1979, 9 p.m. when I read this book. And I say that all the time. People say, why do you always say that? Because it was the day I drew a line in the sand when I picked up this book and the author asked me this. Napoleon Hill said, Ann McNeil, how much money do you want? I had a good corporate job. He said, how much money do you want? I never thought about it. Nobody ever asked me that. So I'm going to ask everybody listening to this program, how much money do you want? Because if you're not clear on exactly the amount of money you want, you don't need to know how you're going to make that money, but you need to know how much it is. The second question Napoleon Hill asked me, said, well, Ann McNeil, what are you going to do in return for that money? I never thought about that. I had a good corporate job. I said I wanted to save $1,000 and I didn't know how. The third question he asked me, and I'm going to ask all of us, by what date do you want that money by? Because if you don't know what date you want it by, the chances are you're not going to be accountable. But fourth question he asked me, December 31st, 1979, 9 p.m. The fourth question was, what's your plan of action you're going to take? I didn't have a plan. And that night I realized that I was broken, and I had no way of getting out of that situation. And I decided I never wanted to live like that again. And it's burned in my memory because that night began this journey for me. Now, let me fast forward 30 plus years later. First Black female contractor in our state of Florida, operating at the level that we do, focusing on billion-dollar programs because I had a plan. Now, that plan included, I knew absolutely nothing about construction, nothing. But I tried a lot of other plans that did not work. So, Flo, when you ask the question about construction, it doesn't matter what our listeners are desiring to do. If they don't know how much money, they don't know what they're going to do to get it, they don't have a date or a plan, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
That is true.
So whether you have the resources, the free resources or fee resources, if you're not clear, and it doesn't mean you need to know exactly the way or the path, because I think we all on here have realized that if we just put one foot in front of the other, and then in front of the other, and then in front of the other, the path begins to open up. So my response is that, Flo, in terms of what do people do? I say the first thing they need to do if they're going to get into this business or any other real estate or construction or selling widgets, be clear. Be clear how much money you want, because if you don't want much money, you don't need to do much. But if you want a lot of money, you're going to have to hustle. So those are my thoughts.
Totally agree. Plan, direction, clarity, they all work harmoniously with each other to get us to wherever the path is. Totally agree. So Devon, going to you, of course, someone who wants to get into the hotel business. Well, how do they figure out which hotel investment is right, for them? So what are some, key factors people need to consider when coming into the space? Like your audio, let me see.
Okay, I see it. It notified me. That's so cute. But it starts off with understanding your ownership thesis, right? So, or your investment thesis. So a lot of people, they get kind of confused, and it's really basic. It's really just the fundamentals before you make that leap, right? So, and because time, time is the most valuable thing. So you don't want to waste your time on something that doesn't fit. For example, so let's say if somebody has a deal and, in order to invest, it's, minimum of, I'm just going to say $50,000. I'm just going to throw out a number. And in order for you to hold, to invest, their exit strategy is they're going to sell it in 5 years. Well, let's say when you put together your personal, after you look at your personal criteria, if you met with your financial advisor or CPA, work with professionals, right? And they put together your credit profile, and they're saying like, hey, you know what? Really, you can afford to invest 25,000, and it may be better for you, to hold it for 3 years, right? So that deal that I just mentioned, it may not work for you because you only can really afford to invest 25,000, and really you only want to look at deals as 3 years and not 5 years or 10 years. So you have to start with, before you investing in anything, regardless if it's a hotel or not, you have to figure out what's right for you. And there's so many different hotel asset classes there, luxury service, there, economy like Super 8, there are full service hotels. I mean, there's so many different hotel classes. You can invest in a REIT passively. There's real estate investment trust. You can invest through syndication, so invest privately. Now there's a lot of crowdfunding platforms, so it's actually more accessible to invest in hotels as opposed to over 15 years ago, where you could normally people wouldn't have been able to invest, but now more and more people are able to invest. And so I would say start off with really doing your research. Determine how much work you want to put into it. Ms. Ann just mentioned, okay, like, so for instance, if you want to own a hotel versus if you just want to invest passively. I get people a lot, they're like, look, Dave, I'm not trying to own a hotel. I'm not trying to do all that. That's not my full-time job. I don't want it to be my full-time job. I have some disposable income that I want to invest because I like to watch my money grow. So I rather invest it, right? So then you may have another person who, they're like, no, Davon, like, I really want to buy a hotel. I want to own it. I want to develop it. I want to expand my portfolio or diversify my portfolio. So you have to look within yourself and see realistically which path you want to take, because those are two completely different paths. The passive approach is, like I said, you can invest in a REIT, that's a real estate investment trust. You can invest privately. So essentially you're having somebody else manage the asset and do all the hard work for you. You're just, essentially paying them a nominal fee, but you're still getting your return. Or you're having someone who wants to do all the work. They want to get their hands dirty and they want to see more of a higher return, because they're in there, doing the work, and they want to see
equity.
The process work. So I get people a lot. They're like, oh, I want to buy a hotel. And I'm like, oh, that's great, but they don't realize how expensive it is. So it is expensive. So I'm a little transparent. I like to be realistic. It's expensive. It's nothing, it's not like you can't just go and flip a hotel in 3 months. You got a hotel. It's not that same type of process. So you have to, it's more of a long-term, anything in commercial real estate is more so of a long-term approach. It's not like a sprint, right? Because I'm seeing a lot of people from residential, or they get into flipping and wholesaling, and they want to go into hotels, and I'm like, okay, it's a little different now. So you have to kind of understand it's not fast, and also when you get into the hotel space, you want to get with people who have done specifically hotels, right? That's who you want to work with. I get people, they want to bring in, they close an attorney on they single family resident. That's not going to work for a hotel. It's not going to work. People in the hotel business probably don't even going to want to work. They're not going to have that respect. You could lose a lot of money. So you definitely want to get with people who have experience. Even with people in construction, a lot of time you can't even get a loan unless you're working with the general contractor or a construction company who has successfully developed and built the hotel, right? Yeah. So I'm noticing a lot of people who, they, no disrespect or anything to folks who are in single family residential, or, just residential, and they want to jump straight into developing 50 million projects. And I'm like, wait a minute, just slow your roll, your research, partner with someone, because you probably want to be able to get the loan. So you can have all these big dreams, but the bank will definitely not give you the loan because they want you to have experience, because you're dealing with something that's an expensive and it's a complicated asset, because hotels is an operating business sitting on real estate. So it's not just you're just owning the real estate asset, you're also owning the business. So you have to understand the hotel business, right? And if you don't understand the hotel business, then that's when you bring in consultants. That's when you bring in an asset manager. You bring in people who really get it, who really get it and understand it, because how hotels are valuated, they're not just valuated based off the real estate. They're not valuated the same as a multifamily or an office building. They're not valuated the same way. So they're evaluated not only on the real estate, but they're also evaluated on the business. So you can buy a hotel thinking you're doing great. You probably overpaid because you didn't know what you're doing. You didn't have the right team. So you overpaid for this asset. When it comes time to sell it, you didn't have the proper team in place to operate it correctly. So now you, not only did you overpay, but now you're not making enough money to even cover your debt service. So when by the time you sell it, you're losing money because you didn't put those people in place, or you didn't want to spend that extra little money in the beginning to get that additional education to make, because I like to teach people to become not only hotel owners but successful hotel owners. So I like to bring people who I know, who I've seen them, like we either work together or you came highly recommended. And I really like to have people that look like us. When I find people that I'm like, wait, you do what? Tell me. And so I try to send business over, because that's what we have to do to keep it in the community, to have it circulating. And yeah, that's my 2 cents for folks who are trying to get into the hotel space.
Definitely some great points here. So let me ask you, of course, still in the tail of a pandemic, and last year everything shut down. And so with people who are looking to want to get into the hotel space, and of course with traveling being banned for a while, like how did it impact your investment and those in the space that in the hotel space? And how can you in other words, how can you ride the waves when it comes to those type of pandemics or situation that's out of our control?
See, my situation is a little different. I was very fortunate compared to other folks in the industry. The reason why I've actually bought a hotel during the pandemic, and for my consulting business, what I did, I changed the strategy. I automated it and I took it online. Right. So I took it online and I started to teach people, and people like, oh, Davon, nobody gonna pay for that. Nobody, man, nobody ain't trying to be a hotel owner. And oh my goodness, I've been so busy, and so many people want to buy. I guess so many people during the pandemic, they had, they lost their jobs, unfortunately. And some of these people, especially people in the hotel business, they didn't think it was possible to actually buy a hotel. Even when I started as a front desk agent, I didn't think it was possible to own a hotel. And so now you have someone who, wait a minute, we started in the struggle together. You started, because I started in the front desk and literally checking it. I didn't start off like as a general manager or anything. I literally started as a front desk agent. So you mean to tell me that you started off as a front desk agent and you mean to tell me that I could buy a hotel? Wait a minute, I started off in housekeeping and I always wanted to buy my own. It's possible, or invest. And so there are a lot of creative different ways that people can invest. And so that's what I started teaching. And I started teaching at a nominal, I don't charge that much. People say I should charge more, but my philosophy is, one, I'd rather for you to spend that money to invest instead of spending all that money on you do want to educate yourself. I do charge and I try to connect you with the right people, but I'm not going to, overcharge you so where you can't afford to actually invest. I'd rather you invest in a hotel. But that's what I actually did during the pandemic. So just kind of pivoting. I started partnering with other, then people started to seek me out because they wanted to buy a hotel. So I just finished my second program. We have the first group, very proud to say the first group, my first cohort was in January. And we had about 5 or 6 African-American women. They actually formed their own hotel ownership group.
Okay.
So they're in the process of looking for a deal. So they've been talking to lenders. I connected them with an underwriter. I've literally been connecting them with the right people so they can build their team. I just finished another cohort with Omar, who you interviewed, I believe, last year. We just finished a cohort. So we have one person, he's under contract for a hotel. And we have a couple other people. They're probably going to be closing on a hotel probably within 12 to 18 months. That's their goal. And I have another woman who's looking to actually develop. She came from flipping houses and now she wants to develop a hotel. So I'm in the process of finding her a co-developer.
Okay.
So that way she can, because I usually recommend for people to start off with acquiring versus developing, but her heart is really in development. I had to go, and then and I always tell people to get like economy or like select service. I had another student, his heart is really in the way his mind thinks, he can get a full service hotel. So I work with them and really understand, what you're passionate in, because regardless of what I say, if you're passionate and that's where your heart is, and then that's where you're going to put your all, and it's going to be more profitable because you're going to give it 250% because that's what you want, as opposed to I'm just doing this just to say I got a hotel, right? We want you, we want you to make you money, because the goal is to build a portfolio, and because my goal is to create 221 hotel owners and investors this year.
Okay.
And so
awesome.
Thank you. So to do that is through education, right?
Yes.
And so to do that is, and I noticed that again, as I mentioned before, and I'm sure, Ann and Denise, I know this, unless you own something, nobody is going to, we can't bring stuff to the table. We can't demand things. So if we can get more and more people who look like us in positions where we can say, hey, you know what? You need to get more Black general managers. You need to get more Black owned construction companies. You need to get more Black appraised. Like, I'm not going to do business with you unless I see somebody who look like me on your team. I don't want them being a secretary. I don't want them in human resources. I want them in the financial. You can't tell me that you don't know one, because I need you to go find one. And once you find that person, then I'll bring you some business. But in order to do that, you have to own. And I realized that just from being in my position. And I noticed from just growing up in the industry, the people who had power, who not only had capital, but they had political capital, but they had that power through owning. And I noticed that people decided they were listening to them. They had no other choice but to listen, right? Because they wanted their business. And so that's been my passion. And also seeing the Indian community owning over 50% of the hotels. I'm like, come on now, y'all came over here. How y'all surpassed us? They not surpassed us owning all these hotels. Why can't we do it? So that's been my fire inside.
Awesome, definitely, and you will hit your goal. So we work in terms of like me gathering a few group of people in order to start that, and that support for you as well.
Thank you.
And so let's get into some wealth strategies. So Denise, I know you, of course, you're the founder of the Wealth Matters Educational Services. So when you start making the money that you desire, how do we keep that money, maintain it, grow it, and live legacies? So what do you teach in regards to wealth strategies?
Well, what we teach mainly is, like I was mentioning, we teach about building your personal economy. So we're going to teach you on, starting off with your credit, where you are with that, and getting your credit to where it needs to be. Because we feel like everybody should have 700-800 credit scores. Because at the end of the day, we can build more capital with credit than we can running out trying to save money. So we want to make sure people have their credit where they need it to be. We talk about, your cash flow, understanding what cash flow really is, and then understanding, what I like to call it, what your sweet spot is as far as your cash flow. And then knowing what you can do, once you have cash flow that you have coming in, we want to talk about things that you can do, like invest in real estate. I always push people to invest in real estate. I know that they could, invest in stocks. They could do a number of different things, but I'm always talking to people about, building their wealth to put it back into real estate, because I just think ownership is it's important, and building those assets, it's important. Having that portfolio, and that's something that you can pass down in your generation. And just like Devon mentioned about having the hotel, it helps the whole family. It doesn't just help that individual. So when you own real estate like that, I think it's something people should definitely consider. And then we go into talking about retiring with real estate. You know, you can build a portfolio, residential or commercial, and you can retire, you know, from that real estate. You can have it as income, but then you can also have it at a certain point if you decide to start, you know, selling, you know, your real estate. That's money that's coming in. So those are different things that we talk about, and we kind of, you know, just go into each aspect and just help people from wherever they are. And one of the things we do is like Ann mentioned, we always start with figuring out what it is, what's your goal, you know, begin with the end in mind. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? What do you want to do? And then from there, we help them create a blueprint from start to finish.
Okay, awesome. And so I guess we'll go into the final word. So what 3 things you want to leave the audience with? Since you know you have the mic, Denise, you can start, and then
yeah. Okay. I would definitely say understand what it is that you're looking to accomplish. That would be one. Understanding what you're looking to accomplish, you know, beginning with that end in mind. Number 2, coming up with a plan, you know, figuring out whatever that blueprint is to get what it is that you're trying to achieve. And then number 3, I would definitely say, if you haven't, start really considering investing in real estate. That would be my 3.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And Devon, I guess your 3, you know, last words.
It's so cute how I let you know. But definitely one, I agree with Denise. Invest in real estate. You know, focus on, you know, your balance sheet, meaning your assets exceeding your liabilities. Miss Ann got me thinking about I need to read that book again, because I ain't get that same fire out of it. So I must have missed a paragraph or 2. So I'm gonna have to go back and read that book. But yeah, and then of course, you know, I got my bonus. Of course, you know, I want y'all to invest in a hotel, but I guess that would be considered real estate. So just figure out which real estate works for you. Some people prefer multifamily. Some people prefer hotels because it's riskier, but it's more of a higher return. So just figure out what works with you for your personal situation. So that way you can, you know, enjoy life and also leave a legacy for your family.
No, absolutely. And of course, Ms. Ann McNeil, I guess your final words.
I am going to invest with you in a hotel. So I'll be calling you after this program is over. And I'm going to invest in you in a personal portfolio. That's number 2.
Awesome.
And
some awesomeness.
Number 3, encourage everybody to think and grow rich by investing $20 a month. $20 a month in whatever you use on a daily basis. And I tell people this very quickly, and we have 3 seconds left. Every single one of us, one of the first things we do in the morning is take a bath, brush our teeth. Who made the products? If anybody told me 40 plus years ago, the power of a $20 bill compounded over 10, 20, 30, 40 years, $20 a month will yield me not 6 figures, but 7. I would not have believed it. It wasn't until 30 years ago, being broken, learning how to invest and how to analyze stocks. As a volunteer, I learned that. And so I want to encourage all of your listeners, go to betterinvesting.org for a free membership to learn how to invest. And also go to climbsusa.org for your children. We have a 10-week summer program talking about legacy building that your children can learn to invest for 10 weeks. We have a stock market summer experience that we do every children to the World Money Show for 25 years. Started that investing before she maxing her retirement before she hit the age of 15. Before she hit the age of 15, hit 6 figures in her portfolio before the age of 30, and is on track to hit 7 figures in her portfolio before the age of 40.
Yes.
A $20 bill invested over 20, 30, 40 years, once a month. That's my, thank you.
Awesome. And what's the best way people can connect with you guys? You guys can, share your social media handles, website.
Well, for me, I would say text the word "and" ANN. Oh, sorry. Text the word "and" ANN at 55678. That number again is 55678, and just text the word "and" for my 6 keys to riches that I discussed earlier. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Devon and Denise, I guess the best way,
Denise?
people.
Oh, I was texting.
Look, I was texting too. I'm like, look, number. Wait, it's 55678.
55678.
55678. 55678. Just put the word "and" ANN, and quickly you will receive those 6 steps. Thank you.
Okay. So you can find me on social media, Instagram or Facebook at Denise Hadnott. And then the website is wealthmatterstoyou.com and then lcommercial.com.
Awesome. Thank you.
And you all can find me on Instagram. I don't know if my handle's showing, but at Davon Reeves, at DAVONNEREAVES. Or you can just go to my website, www.devongroup.com, THEVONNEGROUP.com. And that's probably the best way. And I'm also on LinkedIn too,
Awesome. So thank you again, ladies, for dropping the nuggets, inspiring people to take action towards their wealth plan, thinking growing rich, and applying principles that allow us to, not only like to grow our wealth plan, but also leave legacy for our community and our families. Appreciate your time and definitely connect with them in order, if you have any goals that is resonating, or either, getting into commercial real estate, hotel investment. You have people here that's been doing it for a while that can hold your hands, that can direct you to the right resources. And we appreciate you guys. Here's your flowers, because they always say give people their flowers while they're still alive, and we just want to say that we are, indebted to your services for the community. So thank you again, and also you guys have any questions, you also, you can send me a message and I direct you to the right path here. So thank you. You guys enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Have a great one.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. This is great. It did go by fast.